Yo, what's up guys? Say Chronicle here with some do's and don'ts for pretty much the early few days of the game. Definitely the first do is watch my beginner guide. There's a lot of information to this game, and the beginner guide is actually a pretty compact version of a lot of the stuff that you need to know to pretty much progress in this game. Second one is, well, it sounds somewhat self-promoting as well, but very simply, play this game while watching a streamer. So if you're playing this on PC, have like a stream open on the side. If you're playing it on mobile, try to have like a stream open on the side. You can learn a lot about this game from watching a streamer, but not even just the streamer, just the community talking in that streamer's chat, because everyone is helping out with each other. Everyone's giving tips to each other. So I don't even say like watch me. No, I say watch someone that has like somewhat of a viewer base and that helps each other out with like learning this game. That's very useful. And that's how I learned most of the things when I started playing this game. And then some more practical tips into the gameplay itself. Some of these I've already mentioned in the beginner guide, but I want to mention them here as well. First one is unknown scroll summoning is very useful. The moment you summon unknown scrolls and you get duplicates of units, it gives you the possibility of getting extra power as well. And the power you of course want to get for clearing dungeon stages easier. What happens when you summon multiple of a unit? For example, if I summon this a whole bunch more time, all of my fire units will get that extra attack. So unknown scrolls in this game are very useful, and therefore you definitely want to use them all the time. Also, definitely a do, and that's pretty much going to work you through a lot in the content. Everywhere where you see an exclamation mark, click on it, check like, okay, I can claim some stuff over there. Cool, go on to the next. Here, a bunch of stuff I can claim, go to the next. You pretty much want to go do that with all of the exclamation marks you have at all time. And there's going to be a lot of them early game. So first thing you want to focus on, of course, is the quests. So quest line is definitely the first thing you want to focus on. Clear all of this Rahil Kingdom story. And it will take you quite a while. It will probably take you like a day or three to like probably a week. Depends how much hours you play at it. Another tip for early game, which is very useful. If you go to Arena, you have to register a certain defense. You could set up your best team for your defense, but it's actually recommended, same as what we did in Sky Arena at the start. You register one unit, and the reason for that is because everything that has one unit makes it very easy to clear. You don't climb too many ranks, and it's very easy to clear each other in Arena that way. And at the end of the week, when it starts going towards like the weekly reward, that's why you set up like proper defense. But early week, you want to play like a simple defense. Everyone can clear you. You can clear everyone. You can get rid of these tickets pretty easily. You don't want to overstack tickets. And with that mentioning overstacking tickets, always make sure that you do all of your entries. So in this case, I have 6 entries. Every day you want to do those 6 entries over here. You have, for example, 3 entries in here. You want to do those. And that counts for pretty much every dungeon and every raid that you can do. Try to make sure that you do all of these daily things. Also, once you do those 3, you can refresh them. I would refresh them, especially in the early days, especially for Kairos. I would definitely refresh. Path of Growth, you probably don't have to refresh all too much until you can farm later things. But Kairos is one that you definitely want to refresh, because getting the Essence of Magic or getting extra awakenings is very useful. And that also for the respected other awakenings that you need for like the specific dungeons of the elements. Another thing which I didn't talk about that much yet is professions. I will be making a separate video on professions, but there's something that you can already do in the early days. If you're in any area and you click on the world map, click on the world map. Yes, you click somewhere, it will open up the world map for you. And then you can select here like, okay, where do you want to go? In this case, we're searching for this specific guy. Oh, it's right over here. We're searching for this specific guy, and that is the lizard man. It looks more like a frog to me, but apparently it's a lizard. That guy is pretty important for one very specific thing. And that is you can send him to an expedition to get certain rewards for you. So this is what happens when those things come back. So yes, we want to claim all of those. And you can send this guy away with like, we want to get, for example, branches. And we send in a bunch of units. You might ask, like when I started playing this, someone told me, it's like, yeah, you need those. I'm like, what do I need? It's like, you need everything. Just send something. I'm like, okay, I just started sending all things left, right, center. You have no clue what you're sending and what you're getting for. I want to be more specific with that. In the early game, there are a few things that you want to focus on. Branches are always very useful. And iron and silver is something you definitely use at the start. The other things like towards the other areas, that's more of somewhat like higher tiers of crafting. So you're not going to use all too much of it. Also, don't go for all of these fruit kind of things. Like most of these fruits, like peach, mango, all of that stuff is not really worth that much. Same, this tab, most of it is not really worth it. So if you send out fire units, this sturdy 3-branch trunk is pretty decent. You have some usage for this one and that one, if I'm not mistaken. But once again, the fruits are not really interesting. For here, this is like middle tier of crafting, and this is higher tier of crafting. So first things you really want to focus on for these expeditions is branches. You want to send these units in. Depending on your power, you can send them for an X amount of difficulty. So at first, you probably send them for like a 1 difficulty because you only need 20k for that. And at a certain point, you can send them in for higher. Another tip I want to give with that is that you can switch runes and get the power from that. So for example, if I think my water units are ruined right now. Let's say I put in those 3 water units. I put in the Anvil, which has the 120k at the moment. I send this guy away. It will take 6 hours to get that done. I can say, okay, I go to my Anvil and I put my Anvil runes, for example, on this unit. So the Anvil runes are over there. I boost the power of this unit. And then I can still say like, okay, Anvil is still doing its work for what it's been set up for. But I can use the higher power of this unit. It didn't increase that much because it's not an efficient set for that unit. But that way you can switch around sets and use the same set multiple times. It takes a little bit more effort, but it's really recommended because those materials is definitely something you want to get early on. And since it's a 6 hour every time, you want to get this running early on. You do need some material for it to get this going, and that is just like the gloves, and in the case of mining, it is the pickaxes. If you're wondering where can you get those, it's pretty easy. If we go over here, in this case, the general shop is over there. But might you not know exactly where the general shop is, then you can just find it from here. You can just scroll through the thing, and then you can say like, okay, move to the general shop. From here, you can simply buy these tools. And maybe early game, you don't have that much money, so you don't want to buy like 100. But you want to at some point just buy hundreds per time, and at some point you run out and you just buy new of them. You don't need the higher tiers of those. Those are just useful if you want to mine yourself. But if you want to have the lizard mining and farming for you, you just get the lowest tiers because it doesn't change anything. So that is a very useful tip, and that's something you definitely want to get running at the early game. But how to use that exactly, we will get to in a moment. But the moment we will get to that, you already have the material, so you don't have to farm for it yourself and those kind of things. Another tip I have is do not focus on 5 stars right away. 5 stars seem really cool, really nice, but they are very expensive for materials. For example, if we compare a 4-star awakening it to awaken 6 or a 5-star, that costs more than double. It's almost 3 times as much. For some of the materials, it's literally 3 times as much. So you do not really have that much material in the early game. So I recommend you not to focus too much on the 5 stars yet. Focus on 3 stars and 4 stars. 3 stars is what we mainly started off at the NA server, but if I'm not mistaken, there's very good odds that we will have 4-star Devilmons right away. And that helps out a lot to get these 4-star evolves and the 4-star skill ups right away. So we can focus more on 4 stars than what was possible in the NA release. But you want to kind of still focus on those 3 stars because they're just way cheaper. Getting all of the skill ups in, the awakenings in, and all of that kind of good stuff. The 3 stars that you're probably going to focus on a lot in the early game is going to be the Konamiya, very good overall support. Shannon, also a good support with attack buff and defense buff. And then as damage dealer, it's most likely Iselia. At some point, I'll make guides of like other units that are 3 stars that are also pretty useful. But those are the main 3 stars that probably everyone that watches any guide is going to walk around with. Most of the 3 stars besides those 3 are not really that useful except for like niche content. For example, Tattoo is going to be used for niche content. The Fire Gore is pretty decent for niche content. What else do we have in 3 stars? I've seen some people use the Hellhound, which is okay-ish. Tractor is used in specific content, but is besides that also not that great. And then we have for wind, we pretty much have nothing else as far. I've seen some people use this as a healer. It's kind of okay as a healer. But for the normal element 3 stars, that is about it, what you really want to focus on. And from there, you're going to transition to good 4 stars. And I'll make a separate video of the good 4 stars, which are good for that. But for 3 stars, those are the first few you want to focus on. L&Ds you're probably not going to get, but I'll make a separate video on that as well, which L&Ds are good if you get 3 stars, because there's some good 3 stars, some good 4 stars. For L&Ds you definitely want to focus on. But since this is really a do and don't for like early game, I'm gonna keep it with that. Next thing I want to recommend in the early game, do not spend too much of all kinds of currencies. Especially if you go for Sky Stones. Sky Stones are pretty hard to come by, and you don't want to waste too much of those. There's a whole bunch of currencies that you don't want to spend too much on, because you're not going to get too much of that. And in the early game, you don't really have to upgrade your weapons all too much. Your weapons, your gear, even your runes, you don't really have to upgrade it too much. Something that I do recommend you to do is level up your units. So especially the units like the Azalea, for example, you know you're going to use it for quite a while. Level up those units, get those extra stats in that way. Give it some runes, but don't really up the runes. If we go to runes specifically, if we up runes, it gets more expensive if you have a higher tier and a higher level rune. These material is pretty doable to come by, so wasting a little bit of that is not that much of an issue. Sky Stones you don't really want to waste too much, and gold is a difficult resource to come by at some point as well. So don't waste too many resources. Just use your resources the moment you're stuck at a certain stage. You don't have enough power. You want to get that high power so you don't have the penalty. Definitely do get these power-ups then, because as mentioned before in the beginner guide, if you don't know about that yet, highly recommend you to watch that again. But the combat power determines how easy or how difficult your stage is. So once it becomes too difficult because of your combat power, you actually do want to up your power, use some of the materials, and then continue that way. Another tip, which I also mentioned in the previous video, don't go heavy whaling within the first week. Maybe get like a small pack here and there. If I'm not mistaken, they have some like 1 or 5 euro packs that give you a Transcendent Scroll. Those are pretty nice in value, but I wouldn't start like heavy spending right away. Just take a chill, see if you enjoyed the game. Once you enjoy the game, you can look at like, okay, how much is it worth for me to spend? But until then, just you don't have to go like heavy, like $100 in, like straight in the first freaking minute. No, absolutely not necessary. Just take a chill, see if you like the game. From there, just start slowly progressing into whether you want to say like, okay, I'm going to play fully free to play, or I spend like maybe an X amount per month or anything like that. I really recommend don't go like heavy spending and then it's like, this game is shit. I spend a lot, I got nothing. It's like, maybe you should have checked first if you like the game. I don't know. Then the final tip that I'm going to give for do's and don'ts in the early game. If you have the opportunity to do something AFK, so let's say you have a certain moment where your PC is on, but you're not looking at it, or you just have it running on the background while working or doing homework or something else. What are the things to do while AFKing? One of the things is definitely going for fishing. Fishing is pretty decent to do while AFKing, because you just set up like it at a certain fishing spot. It just fishes until you run out of baits. Or what you do, what I mostly do, and then what I mostly will be doing, is getting these creature books and saying like, okay, I want to get the rewards from this one, move me to there, and I just want to continue farming that unit automatically. You have this button over here, the M, which is located for me, and it just starts like killing all of those units around. So those are definitely the first do's and don'ts that I recommend for playing this game. As of the release of this video, the game is also released, so I will be most likely streaming this game on Twitch, so definitely find me on twitch.tv/Seishizo. Hope to see you there. Hope you enjoy this game, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.